I'm Christopher Green. This is Green Wave Radio Live. We are broadcasting around the world on the hardest hitting television network on the planet, AMTV. Come check us out, visit us, join our community at amtvmedia.com, also greenwave.com, and syndicating with our partner network, American Freedom Radio. Please check them out, support them as well at americanfreedomradio.com. You know, I'm feeling a little introspective today. I'm doing a lot of thinking, a lot of brainstorming, and I'm also reading through the news. I'm taking a look at what's, happening around the country, and I noticed a big headline today. A big headline that reads, Rush Limbaugh says for the first time he's ashamed of his country. And I couldn't help but just kind of smirk at myself. Really? For the first time you're ashamed of this place? Of this country? This is the first time you've been ashamed. Everything about this country, especially over the past few years, has been entirely and absolutely shameful. There's a picture on the Drudge Report. In fact, they've got the Capitol building. You're looking at a reflection, so basically it's upside down. It's kind of like putting the flag upside down. So for the first time, after all these years, Limbaugh is officially ashamed to be an American and ashamed for the country. This is what Rush has to say. He says, folks, I'm sorry here. I can't help but think that we are all being played for a bunch of fools, a bunch of suckers on this sequester business. I don't know. Are you like me? Do you really think 800,000 people are going to lose their jobs in the Pentagon because we cut $22 billion? Do you really think air traffic control is going to shut down? Do you really think there aren't going to be any meat inspectors? Do you really think all these horror stories are going to happen? I don't. I feel like I've been here. This is deja vu all over again. I remember the 1995 budget battle that involved a legitimate government shutdown. That wasn't just $22 billion we were not going to spend. We're still going to spend $3.5 trillion. We're just not going to spend $22 billion if it happens. I'm reading here from what Rush Limbaugh said earlier. Now, the government shutdown in 1995, we're going to starve kids. That was the plan then. I'm just kidding. Snurdly, I'm sorry. It's all ridiculous to me, every bit of this. I've been doing this. You get a new perspective. I'm into my 25th year. And I think I mentioned to you last week and maybe the week before, I've been doing this long enough now to start seeing the repeat cycles on everything. I don't care whether it's the debt limit or the fiscal cliff or continuing resolution or the budget crisis of 2008 or TARP or the auto bailouts, now the sequester. It's the same playbook. It's the same threats. It's the same danger. It's the same crisis. It's identical. There's nothing about it that changes over and over, and everybody gets sucked into it. I try to escape. I try to get out of it. I try to leave it aside. I try to move on. But it just sucks me back in, too, until I realize that I've been sucked back in. And then there's a part of me that says, well, let's wait a minute now. You got not just Panetta, but now an uninformed military general, General Odierno, saying that he could lose 600,000 uniformed people, and the common sense of this doesn't add up. Now we got a guy comparing this to the Oklahoma City bombing. So anyways, he goes on and on. But for the first time, Rush Limbaugh says he's ashamed of his country. Well, my question is, what took you so long, Rush? What took you so long? Everything about this country is shameful today. And, I'm in an introspective mood, just thinking about all the big issues. Of course, I've spoken about the gun grab and gun control ad nauseum to the point where I just puke in my mouth now. I just puke in my mouth and then I swallow it again, and then I puke again in my mouth, and then I swallow it and I regurgitate it. I'm just constantly eating my own puke because, again, I've reported on this ad nauseum. And I was just thinking today, what it must have been like to be in Germany before the rise of Hitler, during the rise of Hitler, in Nazi Germany, right about the time they started coming to your doorstep, door to door, and begin the confiscation process, which is exactly what we have here in the United States today. I mean, a lot of friends of mine are sending me videos. In fact, a good friend of mine out of California sent me a video from Canada, and it shows a Canadian newscaster just basically talking about reporting. He says, I'm issuing a warning to Americans, our friends just south of us. He says it starts with registration, then they will confiscate. And he goes through the history of how they've done it in Canada. with similar type weapons that look like AK-47s or these what they call and propagandize as weapons of war. But then when they're arming themselves through the Department of Homeland Security in record numbers, buying a hollow round, bullets, 5, 6 rounds per every American in the United States, they're called weapons of self-defense. But for Joe Biden says all you need is a double-barreled, 2-shot shotgun. That's it. You don't need anything else. Just get that double-barrel shotgun, and you'll have to reload aggressively as the police state raids your home, rapes your wife, your firstborn son and daughter, because they're dirty like that. These people, they've got their fetishes in addition to that. It's all about a power trip. It's all about total and absolute control. But I was just thinking, what it must have been like, and asking myself general questions like, when the Nazis and the SS and the Gestapo began going door to door, obviously the smart ones got out of the country before that even happened. They saw what was coming, they just left. And believe me, I question that all the time myself. Why not just get the hell out of here? Hey, you've got millions of Americans are obviously not awake to this, and it looks like we're repeating history. And just like, the German people didn't fight back at the time. Well, what makes us think Americans are, right? They're too busy watching American Idol. So, why would they fight back? They're just going to give their gun, like, here's my gun, Obama, take it. Yeah, take it from me. Rape my wife and my firstborn son and daughter. They're in the back room. Just don't do anything to me, I'm watching a TV show here. So, you think about leaving the country, but what I was thinking about was just, why didn't the people fight back? Why didn't they fight back? Why didn't they start shooting at these SOBs? Why didn't they do something? Why didn't they take a stand? And, it's the same thing we have in this country today. And it's kind of funny. I'm watching, there's a pretty darn good show on Netflix. It's an original Netflix series. And it's a good drama. It's got Kevin Spacey in it, called House of Cards. I'm not sure how many seasons they've had. I'm just kind of working my way through season 1. I've watched a couple episodes, and it's filled with intrigue and politics, and it's all about the chess game and moving the pieces in Washington, D.C. to accumulate power. And it's interesting because it has nothing to do about being a politician for the benefit of the people. It's just about Kevin Spacey's game and his plan and his thirst for more power, his own personal agenda, and how he manipulates the people from episode to episode to get what he wants. And it really is true. That's what we have today. But it's funny, there was this one scene, and I think this was like episode 3 or something like that. But basically, they're using the tragedy of a child to push a political agenda. And I just couldn't help think about, Sandy Hook and just how, it's like, the kids are dying now. Let's trample that Second Amendment, because the kids are dying. Let's give up, all of our freedom. So they were basically mirroring that in this show, which, I find it interesting from time to time to see what's, going on mainstream and, what the people are watching. So pretty intriguing. But back to why people won't fight back. Why didn't the German people at the time when the confiscation began and the rounding up of the Jews at the time, why didn't they just fire back? Their lives were being threatened. Their very existence, families, friends, religion, what they believed in was being threatened. So why didn't they fight back? And I think it goes back and it boils back down to there's a process that is taking place right now. And in any resistance, there's a certain amount of stages that the people or one person, maybe yourself listening to, has to go through before you realize that there are no options left. And you're in a situation like we're seeing today where states are openly beginning to peacefully secede from the Union as a last resort, which eventually will lead to armed conflict, in my opinion, and unfortunately will lead to violence. Of course, that is the last resort. That is the last option. Nobody wants that. I certainly don't want to see that, but that's the trajectory. That's the road we're being led on. But there's stages that one has to go through, and we talk about this all the time about being awake. I'm awake because I'm aware. I'm fully cognizant of what's happening around me. I'm aware of the political agenda that, Obama is pushing to ban guns in the United States. I understand all this. But see, the first stage is really, in waking up, is an ideological shift. It's the realization that you are being completely and utterly dominated and controlled by a power structure, by a system that encourages your own destruction and your own bondage. I mean, that's kind of step one. So there has to be this ideological shift, and a lot of us have been through this. I've certainly been through this, where your world turns upside down, and it's almost like being reborn. Christians, the Christian faith say, they're born again. It really is like that. There's an ideological shift where, and a lot of you tie this in spiritually and et cetera, but there's a shift in your view of the world and how you see the world. And it's a scary shift for a lot. And I think the fear, we all have to recognize that, and the fear is normal, because going from thinking that your government actually cares for you and has your best interests at heart, and that actually is, trying to do what's right and what's for the good of the people, to go from that to that these people are actually actively murdering you, poisoning your food, your water, your air, poisoning you financially through massive amounts of debt, and, these very large corporations just, thumbing you down for life, issuing you 0% credit cards and mortgages at X% so you can pay 3-4 times what the home is worth over the period of 30 years. And then even when you do own it outright, if your heirs forget to pay taxes on the property, they'll confiscate that because you never really own anything. It's just a total facade. There is no ownership. You're owned. You're like a battery. It's the Matrix. You're viewed as just a pawn in the game of greed and in the game of life for those that control you and that have you in chains. But it's a very intricate system that they've built. So to have that ideological shift, to shift that viewpoint, it's scary. It's frightening, because it makes you feel insecure, and it makes you fearful. And so I think what the problem is that there hasn't been enough people shifting their view ideologically. There hasn't been enough people even hitting that stage yet to get to the point where they're like, okay, now we're at the last resort. Now Obama's confiscating guns, trampling the Second Amendment. He wants everything. Total power, absolute control. There's not enough people that have even gone through stage one yet, the ideological shift. They can't even get to that, the other phase. So I think that's part of the problem. I think it's the reason why the people didn't fight back in Germany. They were just like, oh, yeah, kill me, Hitler. Yeah, sure, gas me. Oh, we're being led to a shower. That'll be nice. Yeah, just lead your way right into the showers here. A nice warm shower, as he gasses them all to death. Why didn't the people fight back when, he was, going door to door? Why didn't they do that? Well, I think it caught most people by surprise. And, the same thing is happening in this country today. So I can't help but sound a little bit defeatist today, a little bit self-defeatist even, because it just doesn't seem like enough people really understand. It doesn't really sound and seem like there's enough people awake. So, for Rush Limbaugh to say for the first time in his life he's ashamed of my country, well, Rush, with all due respect, buddy, my friend, you're a little bit late to the party. Maybe you should take that cigar out of your mouth and wake up yourself. So there's a lot going on, and a lot in the news. In fact, we had some really interesting weather yesterday. In fact, we're out here in Arizona. Many of you saw this, how snow stuns golfers in AZ. In fact, we got snow out in Tucson. We had snow out here in Phoenix. So you can literally drive the freeways today and see snow-capped mountains in the distance. It's funny, though. We have a beautiful day today. Sun's out. It's a little chilly for Phoenix, but it's literally already started to melt. So it's not as severe as what you may be seeing in the media, considering it's already melting and the sun's bright as can be. You can get a suntan today. But that's what we had going on here, at least locally yesterday. Now we have severe thunderstorms and tornadoes in the deep south. The storms bearing down on the Midwest. So this whole gun thing, just again, as I mentioned before, I keep puking in my own mouth and then having to regurgitate that and swallow again. It's kind of like, what more can we do? You know what I mean? I mean, honestly, how many more films can we make? How many more, documentaries can we push out to the masses? How many more warnings can we put out to the general public? When you still just literally have a small fraction of people awake and aware of what's really happening in America today. Which brings me to the secession movement at large, which I view, and I think a lot of people view as very much a last resort. The American people have been given zero options, but there's a reason why it's gaining steam. Because those that have their eye on the ball, and those people that are aware of the political agenda of the administration and the people that President Barack Obama represents, realize that this will all end violently, and this will all end very badly and tragically for America, for our constitutional principles, for our family values, our religious values, whether or not you call yourself a Christian, Catholic, Muslim, atheist, agnostic, it doesn't matter. But everything this country once stood for and everything this country has been about, short few hundred, has, and will continue to be raped unless we do something about it. And that's just the hard truth. I'm Christopher Groom. We got to go to a quick commercial.